We can be the champions. We can destroy us, but we got so excited. I don't know what I'm, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear is not just another tennis match recap. This is a story about pride, pressure, and one of the most explosive meltdowns in Southeast Asian sports history. If you thought tennis was all about polite handshakes and graceful losers, you're about to get a reality check that will make your jaw hit the floor. We're talking about a diplomatic incident disguised as a semifinal match, a backstage eruption that nearly turned physical, and one ice-cold comeback line that shut down an entire tantrum in 3 seconds flat. Welcome back to Champions Tennis, where we bring you the raw, unfiltered truth about the stories that shake the tennis world to its core. Today's story has everything. A golden girl fighting hostile crowds, accusations of cheating that makes zero sense, a locker room confrontation that witnesses are still talking about, and a revenge performance so dominant it rewrote history. By the time you finish reading this, you're going to understand why Alexandra Ella is not just a tennis prodigy, but a certified ice queen who just served the coldest dish of justice ever seen at the SEA Games. The stage was set in Thiburi, Thailand, at the 33rd Southeast Asian Games in December. For those unfamiliar with SEA Games tennis, let me paint you a picture. This isn't Wimbledon, where everyone sips champagne and claps politely. This is war. When the Philippines faces Thailand on a tennis court, especially on Thai soil, you're not just watching a sporting event. You're witnessing a battle for regional supremacy where national pride hangs in the balance with every serve, every volley, every grunt. The National Tennis Development Center was packed to the rafters with Thai fans who had one mission: watch their hometown hero, Thasipur Naklo, demolish the Filipino threat and march toward gold. They brought drums. They brought flags. They brought an energy that could power a small city. The noise was deafening before a single ball was even struck. This was Naklo's moment. Home court advantage. The crowd behind her. The pressure on her opponent. Everything was aligned for a Thai victory celebration. On the other side of the net stood Alex Ella, the 20-year-old sensation who had already made history by becoming the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles title at the junior level. She trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain, battled her way into the WTA Top 150, and carried the weight of an entire nation's tennis dreams on her shoulders. But here's the thing about Ella that makes her different from every other talented young player. She doesn't just have skill. She has ice in her veins. While other players crumble under hostile crowds, Ella thrives. While others let the pressure suffocate them, Ella uses it as fuel. She walked onto that court in Thiburi, knowing full well that thousands of people were praying for her to fail, and she didn't care. She had a job to do, and no amount of drums or whistles or hostile stares was going to stop her. The match started, and within minutes it became clear that this wasn't going to be the competitive thriller everyone expected. Ella came out absolutely blazing. Her lefty forehand was painting lines that shouldn't exist. Her serve was kicking up and away from Naklo's backhand, leaving the Thai star lunging and missing. Every time Naklo tried to establish rhythm, Ella would hit a shot so good it erased all momentum. The first set was a demolition derby. Ella took it 6-1 in what felt like 15 minutes. The crowd went from roaring to stunned silence. This wasn't supposed to happen. Naklo was supposed to win. She was the home favorite. She had the rankings. She had the crowd. But none of that mattered, because across the net stood a player who had already conquered far bigger stages than this. But here's where things started to get weird. As the second set began, the rhythm of the match started to disintegrate. And it wasn't because of the quality of tennis. Witnesses courtside and fans watching noticed something strange. The pace between points started to drag. Naklo was taking longer between serves. There were shoe-tying incidents that seemed to happen at suspiciously convenient moments. Towel breaks that lasted just a few beats too long. Every time Yellow was ready to serve, locked in and focused, there would be a delay, a distraction, something to break the momentum. Now, to be fair, gamesmanship is part of tennis. Every player does it to some degree, but what was happening in Nabwi crossed the line from strategy into desperation. It was obvious to anyone watching that Naklo was trying anything and everything to disrupt Isla's flow because she couldn't beat her with actual tennis. And the crowd, they became weapons. Every time Ella tossed the ball to serve, a whistle would pierce the air from somewhere in the stands. Every time she missed a first serve, the cheers were so loud you'd think Naklo had won the match. The Thai fans weren't there to watch tennis. They were there to will their player to victory by any means necessary. even if that meant turning the match into a psychological torture session. But here's the beautiful thing about champions. They don't make excuses. They don't complain to the umpire every 5 seconds. They adjust. They adapt. They win anyway. And that's exactly what Alexa did. While lesser players would have melted down, demanded the crowd be silenced or lost their composure, Aile stayed locked in her bubble. She kept her eyes on the baseline. She kept her breathing steady. She tuned out everything except the yellow ball and the white lines. Naklo, feeding off the crowd's energy and the delays working in her favor, started to fight back in the second set. She was hitting harder, grunting louder, trying to physically intimidate the younger player. The score climbed to 4-all, and for a brief moment, it looked like the Thai fans might get the comeback they were desperately screaming for. The drums started beating faster. The chants grew louder. Naklo was pumping her fist after every point, feeding off the chaos. But at 4-4, with the match hanging in the balance, Ella did what champions do. She broke serve. She hit a cross-court forehand winner that painted the sidelines so perfectly that even some of the Thai fans had to acknowledge it with a grudging nod. The stadium fell silent for the first time all afternoon. The drums stopped, the whistles died. For just a moment, everyone understood they were watching someone special. Serving for the match at 5-4, Ella didn't hesitate. She didn't tighten up. She didn't give Naklo a sniff of hope. She held serve with clinical precision and closed out the match 61-64. On paper, it was a clean, straightforward victory. I had outplayed her opponent in every meaningful way and booked her ticket to the gold medal match. She packed her bag, waved politely to the small contingent of Filipino fans who had braved the hostile environment, and walked off the court with her head held high. Match over. Job done. Time to prepare for the final. Except the real drama hadn't even started yet. Because what happened next in the players' tunnel and locker room area is what turned this from a tennis match into a full-blown international incident. Usually, tennis matches end with a handshake at the net. A quick nod of respect. Maybe a good match or good luck in the final. It's one of the beautiful traditions of the sport. Even bitter rivals manage to show basic courtesy in that moment. But witnesses at the net said the handshake between Ella and Naklo was frosty enough to cause frostbite. Naklo barely made eye contact. There was no smile, no acknowledgement, just a perfunctory touch of hands before she turned away. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a racket. Ever the professional didn't react. She simply collected her things and headed off court. But Naklo was seething. The loss on home soil in front of her people was clearly eating her alive. And the pressure cooker that had been building throughout the match was about to explode in spectacular fashion. It started in the players' tunnel and quickly spilled into the locker room area. Fasaporn Naklo, still in her match clothes, sweat-drenched and adrenaline pumping, reportedly came unglued. The frustration of the loss, the embarrassment of being dominated in front of her home crowd, the crushing weight of expectations, all of it came pouring out in a torrent of anger and accusations. She was pacing back and forth, gesturing wildly, talking rapidly to her coaching team, but loud enough that everyone in the vicinity could hear every word. Other players stopped what they were doing. Officials froze mid-con conversation. The atmosphere went from post-match calm to electric tension in seconds. And that's when Fasaporn Naklo said the words that are now echoing across social media and sports forums throughout Southeast Asia. According to multiple sources who were present in the area, Naklo erupted with a statement that shocked everyone within earshot. She screamed loud and clear, "I can't respect her just because she's Filipino." Let that statement marinate in your mind for a moment. In the heat of the moment, with the sting of defeat still fresh, Naklo didn't attack Ella's forehand technique. She didn't criticize her serve. She didn't question her tactics. She attacked her nationality. She made it about where Ella was born, not how she played. It was a raw, ugly moment of frustration that revealed something deeper than just disappointment about losing a tennis match. It exposed the intense regional rivalries and underlying tensions that simmer beneath the surface of Southeast Asian sports. Naklo went on to claim that Ella had deliberately stretched the time between points, an ironic accusation considering the delays and gamesmanship that Ella had endured throughout the entire match. She insisted that Ella had broken her rhythm intentionally. She was demanding that officials review the match result, grasping at straws, looking for any possible way to overturn the undeniable reality of the 6-1, 6-4 scoreline. The hallway went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Other players who had been chatting or warming down stopped and stared. Officials who had been reviewing paperwork looked up in disbelief. This wasn't normal post-match frustration. This wasn't a player venting about a bad line call or questioning an umpire's decision. This was a complete meltdown that crossed every line of sportsmanship. The accusation that Alex Ella, one of the most composed and professional young players on tour, was somehow a time waster or a cheat was baffling to everyone who had actually watched the match. But anger isn't rational. Frustration doesn't follow logic. And in that moment, Naklo was neither angry nor frustrated. She was looking for someone to blame for her own inadequacy on the court. Now, imagine you're Alex Ella in this situation. You've just won a grueling semifinal match in one of the most hostile environments imaginable. You're physically exhausted. You're mentally drained. You're trying to recover and prepare for the biggest final of your SEA Games career. And suddenly, your opponent is screaming in a hallway that she can't respect you because of your nationality. Most players would snap. Most players would march over and start a shouting match that would require security to break up. We've seen it 1,000 times in sports. Tempers flare, egos clash, things get ugly. But Alexa is not most players. She operates on a completely different wavelength. Ella was sitting on a bench near the physio area, calmly retaping the grip on her racket, cooling down, focusing on her recovery. She heard every word of Naklo's tirade, every accusation, every insult, every attack on her character and heritage. The entire hallway was waiting for the explosion. They were waiting for Ella to jump up and defend herself, to shout back, to turn this into the kind of dramatic confrontation that would dominate headlines for weeks. But for a long moment, Ella didn't move. She just continued methodically taping her racket. Her expression completely unreadable. The calm before the storm. Then slowly, deliberately, Alex Ella stood up. She didn't shout. She didn't throw her racket against the wall. She didn't call for security or demand an apology. She simply walked over to where Naklo was still ranting to an official, still gesticulating wildly, still demanding justice for perceived wrongs that existed only in her imagination. Ella stood there completely calm, utterly composed, looking like a queen staring down someone having a tantrum in her throne room. Her gaze was icy. It cut through all the noise and chaos like a laser. Naklo mid-sentence in another complaint suddenly stopped talking. The officials who had been trying to calm her down stepped back instinctively. The silence that descended on that hallway was heavier and more oppressive than all the noise from the stadium had been just 20 minutes earlier. Everyone present understood they were witnessing something significant. Alex Ella looked Thasaporn Naklo directly in the eyes. Subscribe to Champions Tennis right now. We're the only channel giving you the unfiltered behind-the-scenes truth about what really happens in the tennis world. When the cameras stop rolling and the press conferences end, we've got our finger on the pulse of tennis drama. From Grand Slams to regional tournaments, from the WTA and ADP tours to the junior circuits where tomorrow's stars are being born. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. We'll be tracking this Ella versus Naklo rivalry closely as it develops. If Naklo issues a statement or apology, you'll hear about it here first. If these two are drawn to play each other again, we'll be covering it with the same depth and passion. If there are any new developments in this story, any additional details that emerge, any consequences or responses from tennis officials, Champions Tennis will be on top of it. This is just the beginning of what promises to be one of the most compelling rivalries in Southeast Asian tennis history. And we're going to be here documenting every chapter. Until next time, keep your eye on the ball, stay passionate about this beautiful sport, and remember the lesson that Alex Ella taught us all, and not the Bori. The scoreboard never lies. Class always wins in the end. And sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is simply being undeniably, unquestionably, undebatably the best. This is Champions Tennis signing off, and we'll see you in the next one.